Hello and welcome to another edition of Tudor News, which I was going to do a few weeks ago, but I've been delayed. I'm always very busy. It's a problem. Anyway, this story, it's got everything. It's got our old friend Anne Boleyn.
That's good.
A long lost missing palace.
That's good.
And the wonders of British council bureaucracy.
That's bad.
Can I go now?
Sandford Orcus Manor is found in a small village in Dorset. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, it's a quirk of English country life that you can't go more than a mile without hitting some 16th century palace that's been lived in for the past 500 years by the same family. This is the one at the end of my street. They do nice soup. Anyway, Sandford Orcus was built in the early 1530s as what you could call the boom of architecture in the English Renaissance. In the 16th century, the lack of internal conflict, classical inspirations from rediscovered Greek and Roman texts, the huge rise in middle-class wealth due to the dissolution of the monasteries and the development of pleasure building, you see there's a lot less fortified castles. They kind of, as a trend, they go down, and elaborate country estates, they go up. And suddenly people have the space and the money and the peace to build a house that is built for pleasure, to look good, rather than to be somewhere where you hide in there and wait for the cannon fire to go away. So in Sandford Orcus, only 2 families have ever lived in the manor since it was built, and they've got 2 of the most British names you can imagine, the Noyles and the Medlicots. And the manor, for the very first time since 1736, is currently up for sale. Set in a teensy-tiny 73-acre gardens, woodland pasture, it's only going to set you back like a little bit of pocket money, just a tiny, £6.5 million. The small change you can find down the back of the sofa. Anyway, that's not what attracted my attention. It's not what attracted the notice of conservation officers for Dorset Council either. So the family put the contents of the house up for public auction, a real everything must go situation. So you have furniture like chairs and beds and portraits, pianos, and even movable architectural features. The local council noticed that aspects or parts of the manor's windows were listed for public sale. Not just any windows. They were decorative stained glass roundels, and they weren't made depicting the coats of arms of either of the 2 families that had lived in Sandford Orcus all that time. Oh no! These are royal windows. They are specially commissioned stained glasses celebrating Henry VIII and his chosen second wife, Anne Boleyn. Artefacts from the brief 3-year tenure of Anne as queen are incredibly rare to find, given the decay of time and willful destruction, but these windows are not just connected to Anne as a fleeting part of Tudor history, but they are also connected to another fleeting part of Tudor history. Nonsuch Palace was the jewel of Henry VIII's architectural crown. The vast majority of Tudor royal palaces had been used by the royal court for many years. Older fortifications, places like Windsor Castle that have been in existence for a long period of time as centres of not only governmental power, royal power, but legislative and military power. Or you have places like Woodstock, which are hunting lodges that have been modernised and adapted for the current and on-the-go Renaissance prince. Other places were confiscated from former friends and colleagues, such as Hampton Court, but no such palace exists, was different. It was purpose-built by Henry VIII in the very latest styles of the 16th century and designed to directly compete with the luxurious building projects of the royal French court. It's going to be a powerhouse of design and wealth, putting England on the map, a pinnacle achievement for a king and an emperor in his prime, and naturally wasn't finished in Henry's lifetime and was actually really inconvenient for royal use. Nonsuch didn't have its own water supply, and with the royal court consisting of around 2,000 members of the nobility, their family and retainers, the palace didn't actually have enough room for everyone that was needed. So when Edward VI was in residence, those lower down the hierarchy of importance had to camp it out across the grounds. Not a great look for supposedly the most luxurious palace in the land. In fact, running and maintaining Nonsuch proved to be such an expense that Mary I actually sold it off. It went in and out of royal hands until way over a century later, Charles II gifted it to his mistress Barbara Palmer, who then had it demolished and the building materials sold off to pay her gambling debts. As such, not many physical elements from Nonsuch remain. It is not there. No such palace literally is no such palace anymore. If these stained glass windows are from Nonsuch, they do have considerable value as heritage items. There are really specific conservation laws around window fixtures and fittings. Essentially, if you have antique, rare heritage window glass, you legally you can't carve them out of the window frame and just sell them. Even though these windows have been put in place from a different source, they've been at this manor for a considerable length of time, and taking them away does remove them from their contextual history. However, the auctioneers in charge of the sale claim that the windows were not actually installed in window frames and have been suspended from wires as decorative items. Therefore, they're perfectly free to be sold without needing any special conservation. I haven't been to Stamford August. I am not part of the Conservation Office of Dorset Council. I don't know directly whether these windows were actually fixtured and fitted in place or whether they were hung up as decoration, but in any case their sale has been suspended. But I don't know whether they can therefore be privately sold. There are different laws governing private sales from public auction. I guess they might be returned to the manor where they've presumably been in situ since the 17th century. Or hopefully, if these window glasses are what we think they are, they might actually make their way to a museum where the public can see and appreciate them. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, because not to sound bitter, but the prevalence of these private country residences filled to the brim with aristocracy, because this country for some reason still has loads of these people, means that there is a great deal of cultural heritage held in private hands that is not accessible to the general public. There's so much information out there that is locked away in attics and filing cabinets and forgotten hallways that is unable to be seen, unable to be studied, unable to be appreciated. You know, for me, not to get on my soapbox, but these figures of landed wealth and the aristocracy who maintain private archives of items and documents that should be available to the public because they enrich our understanding of who we are, why we are, where we are placed, the things that matter to us. If you are keeping those purposely secret, then jail for 1,000 years. I know some people think it's harsh. I personally don't think it's harsh enough. But there is so much information that is still waiting to be discovered and enjoyed and appreciated, and so many beautiful things that regular people should be able to see, even if they are not part of inherited wealth. So I would hope that these Dorset Manor windows from Nonsuch are kept. They're not sold into private hands where they will never be seen again. They are preserved, and they will draw light on how private hands hoard so much wealth, so much land, and so much history of what should be available and enjoyable for all. So to sum up, Really cool windows. Even cooler if you gave them to the public. So, technically this place is a 16th century deer park, and I was hoping to find the deer, but they are mysteriously vanished today, which is unusual because normally they're right front and centre. But that is a golf course if you want to see old rich white dudes. Old rich white dude park.